You've talked about some functional release here, some interpositions of ease. Were you going to talk about neuro testing in babies? Is that something that's important for you? Or?
Oh, yeah. So one of the interesting things about neuro testing in babies is it's very difficult because they won't listen. So the problem is if you want to break your normal neuro testing down to your sensory and your motor, it becomes difficult. Deep tendon reflexes are a nice one because you can get them. Triceps are a little difficult, but they really are good to use. The trickery is to use primitive reflexes as your sensory testing. So sometimes what we forget is that by doing a palmar, checking out a palmar reflex, what we get is we stimulate the palm and then the fingers close over. But that's actually a sensory test at the end of the day because you are testing the sensation of that area. Doing the plantars is exactly the same thing. You're doing that sensory test. Having them over and doing a Galant is doing a sensory test. So the thing is that
these will all have been done, surely, by their obstetric crew before they leave hospital, will they not?
So it's one of the best ways to check that the brainstem is working properly. It's a really nice test to be able to do on a child. And again, everything may look good, and especially with brain issues. So if you have something like, let's say we've had a little one that's had a stroke, mini stroke, no one quite knows. In hospital, it looks fine. As they go home and as they start to get bigger, things start to deteriorate. So that's why doing well checks like this, we can be the first people to pick things up and go, hang on a second, neurologically, this is not looking good. The picture is not working out. So if we find that, we find a bit of clonus, we find a little bit of tremors, those kind of things, we can go, hang on a second, this baby needs to go back and get checked.
Okay. And how long do you continue with those checks?
So those, like, if you look at something like a primitive reflex check, it actually moves over and becomes something completely different. So initially, we're checking brainstem health. So we're checking to see how well the brainstem is working. But those primitive reflexes are only meant to be there for 6 months. They're the way to be able, for a baby to be able to organize themselves in their environment. But as the postural reflexes kick in, these need to go away. So after 6 months, some of them up to a year, but after 6 months, we start to test the primitive reflexes to make sure they're going away. Because now we want to know that the cortical structures are taking over and the rest of things are kicking in. And if they don't, you can have a primitive reflex that's stopping a postural reflex kicking in, and now you have a child that doesn't sit nicely, can't turn nicely, can't roll nicely.